What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 100 episodes recorded with those very executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, Cigna, and Google, the answer is clear. They learned lessons in leadership from the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. Some of our guests' athletic experience earned them a place in their sports Hall of Fame, like Chick-fil-A Chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claimed they were terrible in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them lessons they still use as leaders today. In partnership with Maxwell Leadership, I'm your host, Don Yeager, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful, positive change in your own organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Jim Buie, President and CEO of Involta, an IT service provider and consulting firm. Jim joined Involta in 2016 as the Chief Financial Officer and steadily took on more responsibility to help the company grow profitably while expanding nationally. Before joining Involta, Jim held executive roles at Comcast and AT&T. And of course, since I live in Tallahassee, Florida, I must include that he graduated from the Florida State University. Jim grew up playing baseball and football, and today his competitive spirit can be seen on the golf course and the ski slopes in his home state of Colorado. Remember to visit corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/143 and download the notes and reflection questions we put together for you.
Always planning well ahead. A company of that size with a brand of AT&T, you had to really think about how you drive costs out of the business. What's the next new innovation that improves the company? Some people say, oh, you play more than a year out, you'll really know. Well, you should. If you are really a strategic-minded thinker, you should know how you're improving your products and services and what that roadmap looks like and what you need to invest to get there. It's not always going to be right, but you should have a plan.
Jim, thanks for joining us.
Well, hi, Don Yeager. Great to see you.
It's exciting to get a chance to reconnect. I know you grew up playing sports. Baseball and football were the two that you played most competitively. In fact, I'm even told you held a record in baseball your sophomore year.
I do believe I'm still the only Satellite Beach High School sophomore to hit a home run over the fence in a game. More importantly, we won a 3A state championship back in the day when I was a junior. We beat Fort Lauderdale St. Thomas Aquinas.
Wow, they're a pretty legendary athletic school.
They were a powerhouse. But I grew up in a little town in Florida, Satellite Beach, Florida. Some people know it as the Space Coast. We're just a sleepy beach town. Such a great place to grow up. That's what you played, baseball, football, and STEM competitions on the weekend. Sports for me were everything. You just rotated sport to sport, season to season. I learned so much in my youth about the grind of competition, teamwork, and how winning felt. The underdog. I think about my company, Involta. It's about being the underdog. There are much larger companies than us in the world. Those satellite high school Scorpion days felt the same. We didn't even finish the regular season at 500. We were a below 500 baseball team going into the tournament. At a 3A school, we didn't have the number of athletes that some of these private schools could enroll and still play 3A. Talk about a team that nobody had respect for. You know what we had? We had each other. We had the right athletes and the right chemistry. We had good coaching. We had people who really cared, where every game, it seemed like a different person contributed in a different way than you'd see it all season. We had guys hitting home runs who had never hit a home run all season. We had guys stealing bases who we thought were kind of slow. To beat teams like we did all the way through that tournament, we shocked the world. It took a little bit of fortune along the way, but you can reach the pinnacle no matter where you come from. Never underestimate yourself. Never underestimate your teammates. Never underestimate when you believe in something, how you can overcome adversity.
What did you learn there as a Scorpion that helps you grow chemistry?
It is about culture. You actually write about this in your 16 characteristics of greatness. We had energy that other teams can't fake it. If you have passion and love doing what you're doing, really put the team first and think about others ahead of yourself. Have that positive mindset. I carry that with me today. I never think about my leadership team. I'm always thinking about that person who takes the phone call from our customer first. How hard are we making their job? How do we make that where it's a fun job, where it's exciting, where they're learning and growing and continuously getting better? IT, for me, it's a 24/7, 365. It's unforgiving. Technology doesn't work all the time. So there's two ways to feel about that. Culturally, you can say, well, it's really hard. Oh gosh, what a tough job. It's just continuously hard. Or you can build a culture around, you know what? Every job in this company is a problem solver. You're a rock star. We have this brand slogan called People Who Deliver. When someone solves a simple problem, we try to recognize that as immediately as we can as people who deliver. You can go to every employee in our company and they know that brand promise. It's three things, and it's not on a corporate wall. It's things we live to, but it's superior infrastructure and services and operational excellence. Don, it's about creating a culture, a positive attitude, no matter what the work is, and really finding ways to learn and get better in the job, to empower people to help us figure out how to make the job more interesting, easier to do. You can make that mundane work something that people want to do. They want to strive to be the best at it. And if you do that as a leader, your people will run through walls for you. And they do. They absolutely do. They make the best of those tough jobs.
I love that you don't just have a corporate phrase, people who deliver, but then you celebrate people who deliver within the corporate environment. It's not just a slogan that's on a wall. It actually becomes a part of living, breathing character of who you are.
Yeah. Three really important things that we know our customers expect. To have people celebrate that constantly in the organization brings me great pride. I've worked a long time in the corporate world. I've seen that not be the case in many companies where it is a corporate slogan or a poster and everybody stops and says, oh, that poster, really? I didn't know we believed in that.
Right. I'm always fascinated by leaders who can get their team to repeat that corporate promise, that brand promise.
Yeah.
Because you repeat it so often as a leader, it becomes part of the corporate narrative.
Yeah, you bet. The contagiousness of it. It's not just one person in the organization saying the same thing over and over again. You know, it's not the head coach saying the same thing. I go back to that satellite high school experience. We all were saying we believe we can win the state tournament.
Powerful.
Having a culture that goes back to just really believing and having passion. It's okay to weed out people who don't have the passion or fit that culture. If you don't really want to be here, there's a million other companies in the world. There's a million other sports to play. But if you have passion, the entirety of that organization will echo that culture. And that's something special we really have created with Involta that I'm really proud of. It's shocking when new people come to the organization, they hear the brand promise very frequently coming from different places. Then it gets infectious pretty quickly with them as well. And they understand how important it is that we serve our clients a certain way and that they're part of it and that their job is so important to doing that and that we care about how they do that job. That does take a special type of recruiting and matchmaking. We use a tool called the Predictive Index, and it does help you understand your personality, your drive, and certain natural characteristics, how you show up in the workforce. And if someone does, in fact, have natural curiosity, entrepreneurial thinking, and some of the characteristics or qualities that we look for that are a match to our organization, we try to bring other parts of the organization to the interview process to help identify cross-functional fit. And we do pretty strong onboarding. Our sales organization has a 12-week onboarding, pretty intense boot camp. By that time, if someone realizes the organization isn't a fit for them, they will have bailed out of that boot camp. Use some of these tools that are out there. They're fantastic. There's a number of them, but I would encourage, even with that information, making sure that you're diligent in the interviewing and the onboarding process, and that you're always trying to raise the bar. When you backfill a position, I'm not looking for an also ran replacement. I'm trying to think about that job, that person, and how do I take it up to the next level?
I love it. One of the little nuggets the team shared with me was that in a few of your bios, you include that your family set the world record for consecutive trips down the Leap of Faith water slide at the Atlantis Resort in Nassau. I was just there with my son. We didn't set a world record. We didn't attempt to. The lines were too darn long. But just so everyone knows, the Leap of Faith is a 60-foot vertical drop where you end up in a clear tunnel. You got sharks all around the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And I know you spend the next half hour actually pulling your bathing suit out of your.
So my son would claim 35 times.
35 times.
Now, he stuck a few more in there because there's only so many daylight hours.
Having stood in that line, I don't know how you get to 35, but that's impressive.
I can confirm north of 20. But my son believes he lapped me several times during the day. Now, it's the same kid who on a cruise ate 26 ice cream cones, which is validated.
He's in some record book somewhere, maybe the Carnival Cruise Lines. So obviously, you're wired with competitiveness. I'm going to assume it runs through the genes.
Oh, for sure. The first family cruise we've been on, age ranges of the boys was 4 to 10. Carnival has a little track and a fitness area. We had the Buie Family Olympics, 40-yard dash, jumping, pull-ups, the whole thing, just to see who would win. Just make sure. Dad had to win most of this stuff.
Okay.
It's cutthroat in my family. And I took my middle and my youngest son bowling. I had to concentrate. I had to take it seriously. And I made sure I won 2 out of 3.
That's awesome. So I've noticed that if you're not tweeting about Involta, you're retweeting FSU football.
Yeah.
You're a proud graduate of Florida State. And I know you've been connected, paying attention to that program, seeking lessons from legendary coach Bobby Bowden for many years.
Yep.
Living here, I got to be around him until he passed away a couple of years ago. But I actually was over spending a little time in Boulder with Deion Sanders, one of the coach's maybe greatest players ever.
Yeah.
It is amazing how much reverence. Didn't matter what these people went on to achieve. And Deion, for example, went on to achieve a lot.
Yeah.
When Bowden, the name comes, I mean, it almost goes to hushed tones.
Yeah, to be revered at that level, when you get to this stage of life, you do start to think about your life journey and what is your legacy and what matters. Just the longevity that Coach had, that's something to be admired. And then the reverence are 2 things I aspire to. I love what I do every day. I want to keep doing this for a long time, as long as I'm healthy and happy. And Coach was special that way.
He really was.
Yeah. I love his accent.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of Coach, was the Southern drawl.
Right.
You always think about, how do you show up as a leader, hungry, humble, and then have a lot of EQ? And I'd say with Coach, the way he recruited kids, the way he walked into their homes, the way he made sure he knew who their parents were. And that's a difficult age. Teenage kids, try to make them into men, kids who maybe have never been out of state, move them to Florida or across the state of Florida to come play college football. And that's a lot. His EQ around not just being an X and O's football coach, but being a true people leader. I think about that every day. I think about, how can I be hungry like most leaders, but also be very humble and have a high EQ. For me, it translates a little different. If I'm recruiting a person to work for Involta, maybe I do need to talk to their family because of the nature of our job, and it's difficult. We have a President's Club recognition. I always tell the families, this reward in this trip, going somewhere to a nice beach, it's about you as the family for supporting your Involta employee so well that they were able to overachieve.
That is awesome. So you worked in a number of different cities for several different companies. Every time you move, You're having to embrace a little bit of a different culture and a style. How do you kind of make sure that you're leaning into the different places you get a chance to travel and be part of?
Definitely to be a sponge during those times, recognize that you don't quite know everything in the world. A lot of times leaders want to move too quickly and don't smell the flowers a little bit with what you can learn from each and every organization. Sometimes it takes reflection, because the more you learn in those early years of your career, it really shapes you to think, when I'm in charge, I'm going to run it differently, and this is how I'm going to do it. Take all of that in. You may not know how you're going to use some of those skills or some of those nuggets you see in culture, even things you may not agree with in the current moment. Ask people why. Why do you run the group this way? What's your thinking behind this? I was really frustrated as a young financial professional that we were still processing everything the company purchased on a piece of paper. We had the ability to auto route, approve things more efficiently, but our CFO at the time insisted that we do everything on paper. It drove me crazy. Eventually, I learned that was by full intent. If you really felt like you needed to buy some paper clips, you felt passionate about it, you would take the time to route it through a paper process. And by the way, they were industry leading in margins.
Wow.
Something that seems to a kid frustrating, like, we're so behind the times. We're so yesterday. There's all this great technology out there. He knew exactly what he was doing.
And you would only know that because you asked.
Only because I asked.
See, I love that. Make note of the things you like and the things you don't. In both cases, take time to ask why they did things that way. That's a loss for most people. You want to sit and assume their intention, maybe take a chance to learn. You might come up with an idea that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and you can apply it in your own way. I certainly don't run paper in my my companies today, but I took the lesson away of putting the right hurdles in front of things. You take the right part away from it, apply it in your own way. That'll help you make better decisions as a leader. Ultimately, my job is to make decisions based on the best information available that the team provides, and including the team in the decision. But sometimes it's not a clear-cut decision. Two things happen. When you make decisions with all heart, you're kind of making a risky bet. It may work out, but you're injecting a lot of risk into your company when you do that. On the other side, when you're waiting for that last ounce of data, you've missed a market opportunity to the competition because you don't move fast enough. Both types of management styles have challenges, and your management teams, even on an individual level, coach them on that. It can be very lonely, and you can't make everybody happy. And I knew that, but teaching the organization how to use information where it's not all hard to really include the right information, as we've matured the organization to really focus on key metrics and data-driven decision. In that way, you can use your heart when it's a tiebreaker on how you make decisions in your department or in the company. We've empowered the employees to do that. And likewise, for people who are data only, it's okay if you only have 90% of the data you need. You don't need to wait for the last 10% to come in for a decision.
Right.
Analysis paralysis, I call it. And that's the way we've tried to get our organization really engaged. How do you help them with decision-making? How do you empower them? How do you make them feel good about running our business, growing our business, solving client problems, solving employee challenges or obstacles?
Healthy balance there.
Absolutely.
I love it. So looking at your career path, pre-Involta, you worked under some pretty prolific leaders, vice president under former president of Comcast Cable, current chairman, NBC Universal, Steve Burke.
Yeah.
You also worked under Michael Armstrong of AT&T.
Yeah.
What did watching them teach you about leadership?
Steve Burke, the way he could simplify a pretty large business down to 2 or 3 important things. I'll never forget competing with satellite television providers for high-speed internet. And Steve broke it down to, here are the 3 goals for the company. This is what we're going to accomplish. We're going to have more high-definition channels. Here's going to be the speed of our high-speed internet. And here's what we're doing with customers. It made it simple where everybody in the company knew exactly where we were going. You may have a different part in each of those objectives of the company, but he just distilled it down to important things. Many times as leaders, you can distract the company. You can have too many things to accomplish.
There's no way you could boil it down to 3.
He's the master at it.
Yes.
I do that today. My team all the time, I drive them crazy because, it's, oh, we have these 10, 20 goals. I'm like, no, we don't. Boil it down. Let's come up with the 3 to 5 things. In Mike's case, always planning well ahead. Current performance was current performance, but you genuinely had 5-year plans. You were always thinking about continuous improvement. A company of that size with a brand of AT&T, you had to really think about how you drive costs out of the business. What's the next new innovation that improves the company? The long range planning I bring with me today. We stick to a 5-year plan at Involta. Some people say, oh, you plan more than a year out, you'll really know. Well, you should. If you are really a strategic minded thinker, you should know how you're improving your products and services and what that roadmap looks like and what you need to invest to get there and how you anticipate the market responding. It's not always going to be right, but you should have a plan.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say about Steve Burke, just the charisma. I love his personality. He was always fun. Even the toughest budget reviews, he'd always give you a good ribbing about something, and that creates a right environment. People want to be in that positive environment. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Being able to simplify things. You're right. Too often we as leaders add layers of complication to what needs to be simpler. Those who can simplify can actually do incredible things.
Yep.
I know that shortly after you began at Involta as CFO, you wished you could have known earlier in your career that it was okay to fail.
Yep.
I'm intrigued by that. Is there a favorite failure that you have experienced that you might share with us?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think everyone has seen something similar. We went into a new business that we had not been in and staffed up 300 people and be the triple play solution for, voice, video, and data to apartment complexes, and really had things going in a positive direction. And the internet bust hit in 99, and all those plans got taken away from us. We had to terminate the whole business unit. I had to personally let go of all of those people that were part of our business plan. It was a failure. Some of it was timing. It was a market condition. You could blame it on that. But it became something that was disposable to the company relative to some of the other core products and services. That hurt.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, other companies ran that play successfully well after that recession was over. So it hurt even worse.
Yeah.
That we were at a hard time.
Hurt even worse to know that maybe you gave up just a little too early.
A little too soon. But those type of failures do make you stronger, both as an individually. I can tell you, to be indisposable in those tough economic times where we could have kept moving forward, those are valuable lessons. I mean, we're in the middle of 2023 and market conditions are choppy and they're probably going to be tough. You can absolutely believe I'm prepared for that, only because one time I wasn't.
It's pretty powerful. We had on as a guest Steve Brass, the CEO of WD-40.
Yeah.
They don't talk about failure when they fail. They talk about learning moments. In fact, that is a corporate phrase. It's code for some place that you really screwed it up. But making reference to it as a learning moment inspires you to be thinking about what you're going to take from it.
A learning moment. I'm going to embrace that. I love that, because we always have a culture of accountability. As you can imagine, when technology does fail, we try to learn from it. What can we do differently?
Right.
It's an everyday thing for companies like WD-40 who do it right. Every leader should aspire to have those learning moments and be accepting of it. It's not a beat down.
It's not career ending.
It's not career ending.
As long as you're willing to embrace it as a learning opportunity.
That's right. Take it constructively and even think about things proactively. This is why I think we're learning out of this. We need to make these changes. That's probably the holy grail. If you can get people who get past the mistake and get past the failure to start thinking immediately about what needs to happen and be communicated to their teams about that, that's a future leader.
Yeah. So I know a source of pride for you is the number 79.
Yeah.
That's excellent. It's a net promoter score. It measures whether someone would recommend you guys, your product, your business. Now, you've spoken about the importance already here in this conversation about customer experience and the employee experience. How do they figure into the company achieving its greatest potential?
Oh, so glad you asked. It's an and equation, not an or. There are a lot of academic conversations amongst leadership about, well, you should be client first. No, you should be employee first, and they'll take care of your clients. It's a both. You have to provide a easy to do your job, constant improvement of your employee experience, and you have to absolutely provide better business outcomes for clients. And yeah, those two overlap a lot in a lot of ways, but they're different. If you don't pay attention to both and you just say, oh, I'm just going to focus on the customer experience, you're neglecting a whole side of your company that needs attention, and vice versa. You have to be able to compartmentalize how important an employee's experience is, how important a client's experience is, and the roadmap of how you're going to make those things better. We do town halls for our employees twice a year. We do employee engagement surveys. We listen in as many ways as we can. We're always working on the employee experience. We made the job difficult over the years, and how do we make it better? How do we retain our talent? How do we add talent? How do we help managers staff their teams? And similar with the client experience, we have advisory boards in our most important verticals. We serve a lot of healthcare, manufacturing, and financial services companies, and we listen to them intently. We just had an advisory board meeting with our manufacturing board in 2 days. It was Involta talking for about an hour and the other 15 hours listening, getting advice on how to make better business outcomes from them. So those are very discrete things to me that do need to come together ultimately, but you got to listen to them. Make sure you're not out of balance in your approach to those two things. You need to be paying strong attention to both. That's what makes companies better. We'll continue to be really strong there because we're listening and changing business outcomes. Similarly, we're going to continue to get better, have higher engagement, have better jobs, better career paths because we're listening to that side of the table.
You said the word listen 6 times. There's such a difference between listening and hearing.
Yes.
It's a skill. What could I learn from you about how to be a better listener?
That's a great question. Have different types of questions in your conversations. Have some probing questions that you ask. Have some open-ended questions. A lot of times I ask my clients, well, what does that mean to your business? We'll be talking about data center connectivity or a certain topic, and here's how we use those services. What does that particular application mean to you and your business? What's it mean to your career? What's it mean to your department?
That's a great question. The onion starts to peel back.
Yeah. If you're really engaged with somebody on a topic and you're asking open-ended questions, you're going to hear new things that maybe you weren't anticipating. The more you follow those up with some probing questions, you get that deeper understanding of the topic at hand. You can call it active listening if you want.
Wow. It's fascinating to me how many people enter a conversation or enter interview setting or whatever it might be, got a list of questions. And it does not matter what you say. As soon as you're done talking, I'm going to the next one.
Right. You got to get through the script, right?
What a fail that is.
Big fail.
How many really good nuggets of learning do we leave untouched because we're busy following the script?
Yeah. More than ever, I think we see this in business. It's an instant gratification society. People are trying to check the box and get something done quickly. You have to recognize that as much information is out in the world, as fast-paced as business expectations are, still take the time. You may not get through whatever agenda you had in a conversation, and that's okay, because you're probably going to get more value than what you were trying to accomplish anyway.
Oh, so true. So true. Active listening. I will continue to work on it every day.
Me too.
Yeah. What are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand? What are you leaning into that's helping you grow?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a couple audibles, but I think I mentioned Hungry, Humble, and Smart. There's an author out there who talks about having the perfect team player.
Pat Lencioni?
Yeah. I would recommend
that
because the ideal team player does matter. As much as we know about being collaborative and working together, That's where I got the strength in reading that to know that it's okay. Somebody doesn't fit with our organization. It's perfectly fine.
It doesn't say anything about them or about you.
Not at all.
Not all things are meant to blend. And you're right. Pat does some really great work there.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Obviously, I'm going on your 16 characteristics of great leadership. We only covered a few in our kickoff, so I want to spend a little more time reading that.
He wasn't paid to say that?
I was not. I was done. And then the work done story is shared. That's on my Audible playlist next to, I got that one queued up just to hear his story and how amazing to have helped more than 250 single mothers in such a powerful way. We do a lot in the community at Involta Cares, but I'm amazed at what he has accomplished. How do we ever get to a level like that? Talking about a legacy, if we could ever get a skosh close to what he's accomplished in the world for good, I'd be really happy.
Gets me fired up every time I think about it. We ask everybody that has been on this podcast. We know the word teams sometimes gets overused. Organizations refer to their collection of employees as teams, when the truth is they're not really a team. They're just a bunch of individuals. You've been on teams.
Yep.
That didn't deserve to be in the state championship and won. You've led teams. You've been around great team builders.
Yeah.
What are some of the elements? What are some of the ways that someone can take a group of people and help them become a team?
You have to understand them individually. Get those players to know you personally, individually, in a detailed way, and get to know them. Everything you can get to know about that individual, where they grew up, where they have worked, what they like to do in their spare time, what drives them, what matters to them. That's important information for you to understand those individuals. I don't think you can understand the collective way that a team's going to come together unless you know all the individuals.
That's a lot of work.
It is. You're dead on. It is. And most people don't do it because it's a lot of work. I just want to hire somebody and they should all do their job because I'm paying them a salary. I would not do that as a leader. A mentor of mine, Charlotte Field was her name. She worked at AT&T broadband with me. She and I really launched the voice business at AT&T broadband back in the day. Her dad was one of the patent holders on the 5E switch for voice. So obviously she came from a very smart background, very intelligent herself. We had 400 employees in our department and I was shocked. She knows everybody. People used to tease her, well, she's like the lunch lady in her department. And she did. She knew their spouses' names. Now she had the gift of a photographic memory in a lot of ways, but more importantly, Don, she did exactly what you said. She took the time. Back in the day when it wasn't work from home, 400 people in the office, and she made a point to stop by. Weeks and days and months went on. She made sure she got to know everybody in her department. That's a time investment, but well worth it. What a great mentor for me to learn that and see that at a young stage of my career, very impressionable.
By the way, just for the record, we have several more questions on the list, but we didn't get to all of them because we spent time digging in on a few. And Jim, I am so grateful that you've taken the time today to pour into us, to help us grow. Thank you today for being a corporate competitor.
Thank you, Don. As always, enjoyed it.
I loved getting to know Jim and his team a number of weeks ago when I was there speaking at their annual event, and the opportunity to have him on today was even greater. If these lessons that you learned from Jim today resonated with you, connect with me and my team at maxwellleadership.com/Don. Let's next level this conversation. We love discussing culture, companies, things you can grow with. So my 3 greatest takeaways from today, and there were so many. One was I love that idea that their brand promise, people who deliver, is then something they celebrate within their own team when their people deliver. They look for an opportunity to turn their brand promise into something larger than just a phrase on the wall. I also was riveted by his conversation about listening, active listening. A lot of people talk about listening, but he gave some very instructive discussion there. Ask that open-ended question that leads them into discussion. Go from there to a probing question. What can you learn from them? I love that question he said he asks of many of his clients when they're talking about something they're looking for. What does that mean to your business? Sit and listen. You understand what their business is really going for. Finally, my third takeaway from today was he talked about the idea that too many companies feel the need to declare they're employee centric or they're customer centric. It shouldn't be an or equation, but rather an and equation. His leadership style is driven by that sense that we need to always remember the needs of and the ability to serve both our employees and our customers. Jim, Buie was just a great gift to us today, and I hope that you will take what you've learned and make yourself a greater corporate competitor. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir. How
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll. Thanks for listening to the show. I would be so grateful if you left us a rating and a review. We will be rolling out a new episode every Wednesday. To be the first to listen, subscribe to the podcast on our website, corporatecompetitorpodcast.com. Plus, as a thank you gift, you will receive a free chapter from one of my best-selling books on the habits of high-performing teams. Stay in touch by connecting with me on social media at Don Yeager, Yaeger, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next week, I appreciate you.